How are we doing today, guys? This is William Myers from Manus Outdoors. Today I'm going to be doing a video about winter clothing options. Don't go away. Alright, so in the summertime, cotton is a wonderful fabric to wear. It absorbs moisture and exposes that moisture to the convectious breezes, the wind around you, and cools you off 30 to 35% faster. In the wintertime, in my opinion, wool is a much better option. It also absorbs moisture not as readily, as fast as cotton does. Actually, in some points, the lanolin in wool can actually sheen water to a point before it actually does soak in after a period of time. But if you don't know, wool actually retains 80% of its insulating value even when wet. So I'll go ahead and address the elephant in the room. Some people are allergic to wool, and there are a pretty big amount of people that have a fairly violent histamine reaction to wool that can cause rashes, irritation, things like that, hives. But there are people out there that believe that they are allergic to wool. A very small amount of people that I've run into in my experiences that think that they're allergic to wool, but actually they just have an irritation to cheaper wool. And what I mean by that is that obviously there's different breeds of sheep. Excuse me. Obviously there's different breeds of sheep, and some are classed differently and some are regarded as cheaper wools. And then you get into the more finer, more expensive wools like in New Zealand and Australia, merino wools, and those are the more finer wools, the more desirable wools. They actually class those on micron levels, and you can look those up. There are information out there. I believe the finer wools are in the 15 to below micron level, and then there's some up to 25, 30, even 50 microns. I might be incorrect on that, but that's just from my research. So if you actually take these cheaper, less desirable wools and you examine them under a microscope, you'll see that the hairs of that fiber, the tips of those hairs, are actually shaped like a dagger. And in fact, some of them can have barbs on them, and you can just imagine how uncomfortable that would be when exposed to bare skin, let alone sensitive skin. So if that is your case, if maybe you want to give wool another chance, I would suggest you looking at companies for your base layer like Wool Power, Icebreaker, and Minus 33. Minus 33 being one of the cheaper brands because it is manufactured in China, but it is from merino wool source. I wear Minus 33. They're absolutely comfortable. Sometimes I can't even tell the difference between them and cotton. Unfortunately, those fabrics are more expensive. But if you choose to invest in those, I would invest in something that would be your base layer. That would give you protection from your outer shell, giving you options to wear not cheaper but more coarser wool that may give you an irritation. And this even goes back to Anglo-Saxon era in Britain. Cheaper, coarser, less desirable wools were abundant there, and the more finer, more comfortable wools that were more costly were usually set aside for the nobility and people of higher standing in the community, because those were people that, number one, could afford the stuff. It was very expensive. And an interesting side note to that point is that even in Anglo-Saxon era Britain, I guess they had a problem with the spinners spinning in foreign material into their wool, especially the cheaper wools, and that would just make their fabrics go that much further, expending their profit margins. And in fact, evidently they had such a problem with this that even they had to write a law that states that if you are to spin wool, you have to do so outside in public, so for everyone to see, to make sure you're not spinning in like straws and hays and stuff like that, which that they did. And that, like I said, that would just make their fabric stretch and increase their profit margins. So if you pull that into our time today, if you go to common stores like say Walmart and things like that, and you look at wool socks on a shelf, you'll see in big red letters wool. On further examination of those socks, you'll find that some even contain as little as 17% wool. That's, in my opinion, just enough wool to call them a wool sock. Other than that, there's cottons, nylons, things like that. Excuse me. And those are not going to provide the same protection for you that 100% wool sock will do, excluding elastic in the sock to make it stretch and things like that. So some people do have a genuine pretty violent sometimes, in fact, reaction to sheep's wool. It could be the lanolin, and there's lots of things that can actually affect your body and give you histamine reaction. There are other options out there as well. Alpaca is one. A lot of times I find that some people that are allergic to sheep's wool are not allergic to alpaca wool, so there are options out there. But at the end of this video, if you just have found that you are just having a reaction to any kind of wool whatsoever, we're going to give you some other options as well. Alright, when I choose to go out into the winter and it's 20 and below and things like that, I usually wear at least 3 layers of clothing. 4, sometimes 5, you can actually be pushing it. It can actually have the opposite effect and start reducing your insulating value. When you're wearing wool, and even anything actually, any kind of fabric that you're choosing to wear as an insulating value, you don't want that insulating material to be skin tight. You don't want to be compressed and pushed onto your body. What you want is rather loose fitting clothing that can be sealed from the bottom. I have a drawstring on these that seal it up to trap the air that's inside, and my body's radiation heats that air and keeps me warm. So you don't want anything skin tight on your body, and that even goes for when you're choosing to lay down in camp for the night. If you're choosing to use a wool blanket, you don't want to wrap up in that thing skin tight and just have that thing compressed on you. You want it rather loose, so like I said, your radiant body temperature heats the air that's trapped in that wool and warms your body. So let's go ahead and go through what I have on my body right now. We'll start with my head. Well, actually, let's start with the gloves, because I gotta take these things off to actually be able to have any kind of motor movement. So these things are wonderful, wonderful gloves. These things will keep you absolutely warm. These are flight gloves, I believe they're called. They're military surplus. Mine are wool lined, so that's just another layer of wool that goes all the way up to here. Keeps me really, really warm. But like I said, you can have trouble doing pretty much anything in these gloves.
Designation is N4B.
N4B?
Yeah.
For people to find them?
Yeah.
All I know is they work. Okay, so under that, I usually wear mittens, wool mittens. These are also military surplus. Come with a trigger finger for when I'm hunting. I can still wear my gloves. Mittens are better, in my opinion, because your fingers aren't trapped by other material. They're allowed to radiate between each other, thus heating the air that's trapped in here. So even going further, I usually wear fingerless wool gloves under that, and that is also military surplus. You can find these. My buddy Mitch Native Survival, he's got them on his website. You can find them all over, but he usually has pretty good prices on things like that. Alright, up top here I got a this actually is not wool, but it's one of my favorite hats. I got this from a buddy of mine, but it's I think it's nylon or acrylic, so this is not wool, but it works. Underneath that is, like I said, the company that I mentioned earlier is Icebreaker. It's 100% merino wool, which adds extra warmth and can add protection to my head, so I can actually have another option to wear some coarser, like I said, less undesirable wools that will keep me warm as well and protect me from irritation. I choose to wear merino wool buff. That's B-U-F-F, and these things are absolutely great. There's tons of options that are with that, from just keeping your neck warm. You can pull this thing up, and usually what I do, but I can't really do it on camera, is I'll wear this over my face like that when I'm running around. Can't really do that on camera. But it's just a great option. You can actually turn this into a full face mask, all kinds of things. You can put it as a hat, twist it, put it back down, and then put another cap over it. I have 3 layers of wool on my head, and then wear another buff on your neck. Alright, so y'all ever questioned about boreal hunting shirt? That's what this is called. It's called a boreal hunting shirt. You pick these up from Leicester River Bushcraft. I probably, other than my neck knife, I probably get more questions about this hoodie than anything. But it is a awesome, awesome piece of gear. It is a rather on the pricey side. It is made of 100%, and if you get them from Leicester River Bushcraft, they will be 100% Army blanket wool. These things, this is probably one of my more warmer pieces of gear. Empire wool and canvas and I'm not exactly sure. I believe it's Duluth, but it's up by the Lester River in Minnesota. They make it for Lester River Bushcraft. Jason at Lester River Bushcraft. If you ever have an opportunity to talk to him, he's an absolutely fabulous dude. He's one of the better guys that you could talk to. He's a really nice guy. Really cool thing about this is, like I said, this has a drawstring on the bottom, so you can cinch this up. And what that does is provides me an area that air doesn't readily escape from. So, like I said, my body can heat up that area that air that's trapped in there. Other cool little design features about this is, you really kind of be hard to see on this camera, but against my stomach is a zippered area, like a little kangaroo pouch. I have two pouches right here, and I have one skinny one in the middle. So I have lots of carry options, and this thing always ends up like dragging the ground, because, you know, I'll be working with something, I'll just throw it in one of the pockets, you know, things like that. But it is rather convenient just to be able to stuff things in and know that they're not going to go nowhere. So underneath that, I have a wool shirt on. It's a Filson. Again, they can be rather pricey as well. It was actually a gift to me from a series of students. I really appreciate that, by the way. Underneath that is another shirt. It's not wool, I believe it is acrylic. And underneath that is my base layer, which is -33 wool, merino wool. Alright, so these are not exactly 100% wool. They are from Colombia. They're wool pants. They're about 80% wool mixture. These are pretty comfortable. Like I said, I buy them pretty big, so that the air around them heats up really good. Underneath that, I have, they are cotton, but they're treated cotton with a, I don't believe it's wax, but it's treated so they're kind of waterproof and wind resistant as well. And then, like I said, underneath that is the -33 base layer. Alright, so now let's talk about some foot options here. You can see, everyone knows how to dress. I'm not trying to tell you how to dress. I'm just telling you how I do things. These are, like I said, 100% wool socks. These are really thick. I picked these up from the Pathfinder school because he has a ton of these things, and they are very good priced. I usually put those over my insulating base layer. Like I said, again, those are -33. And then for more colder, wet temperatures, I'll choose the Muck Arctic Pros. You really have to be careful with these, because when you're running around, these things are such an insulating barrier that they're going to keep you warm, but you have to be careful. If you start sweating, running around, your feet are going to sweat, and then you can actually, say, get to a hunting area or get to your base camp, be sitting around, standing around, and you're going to be like, why are my feet cold? Well, it's because you've been sweating, now your feet are wet, and you're going to start getting a little bit chilled. Easily remedied with a spare pair of socks. Just throw a spare pair of socks on, there you go. But I'll throw my pants over that. So I have, on my legs, I have 4 insulating areas plus the neoprene of the mucks. And then all throughout my legs, I have at least 3 insulating areas. So, like I said, for those people that are just 100% absolutely allergic to wool, we're going to go through some other options here with Chris. Alright, just in closing, you know, wool, in my opinion, absolutely, like Chris said, is king. You know, you're not going to be able to beat its insulating value even when it's wet. That being said, there are enemies of wool, like the wind. So it's not very windy today, so I didn't bring my windbreaking gear. But having something on your body that's going to sheen the wind away and break the wind is definitely going to keep you just that much warmer. You know, wool is expensive. Good wool is very expensive. Your clothing is your first line of defense for battling the elements. So in my opinion, it is worth the extra money. So that being said, hope you enjoyed the video. Please click subscribe. Liking the video really helps me out a lot. I appreciate all your views, comments, and support. Hopefully we'll see you out in the woods. Okay, some people actually do have... The dogs kill me.
Yeah, welcome to my world.
If you see my video, it's crazy, man. I got outtakes of that mess kit survival with nothing but dogs. Alright. Actually, it's counterintuitive.